Inepticast.
Okay, this is episode 2 of the Inepticast film podcast. All 4 of us are here, and we've got a couple more recent films we're going to talk about. Soul, which came out at the end of 2020, and Malcolm and Marie, which came out just a couple days ago on Netflix. I know we've all got some interesting opinions on both of them. So Michael, why don't you get started with Malcolm and Marie?
Oh yeah, sure. So this dropped on Netflix Friday, I believe. So that would have been the 4th. It was actually one I was pretty excited for. I'm not gonna lie. I saw the trailer. I think it might be a bit of like not a popular opinion around here, but not an unpopular one, but not popular. I'm actually quite a fan of John David Washington, so I was looking forward to that. And I haven't seen Euphoria, but I've heard Zendaya's been making waves, so that was interesting. And the use of black and white excited me initially. I'll get to that later. But I was like, okay, this film looks interesting. It's cast interestingly.
Do you want to give a bit to what it's about?
Yeah, I'll go for it. So when it comes to what it's about, it's actually. So a director and his partner come home from a premiere where he's forgotten to say thank you to her, and an argument ensues, and that's pretty much the plot actually.
The whole film actually.
Yeah, you pretty much summed it up. Yeah,
It is one big argument.
Yeah.
The film basically begins as an argument and it ends with barely a resolution to that same argument. And it's an hour and 40 minutes of a couple, it's set over a night and it's just a couple arguing and seeming to make up, but then it's going to go straight back to the argument and back again. And it's a very exhausting film, I think is a word that we've all used for different, we've all got different opinions on it, but I think we can all use the same word, exhausting.
Exhausting is definitely,
There's so many arguments in the one argument that was in the film.
Yeah, it really does branch out.
I do like that aspect of it. The fact that the whole thing is an argument, and it kind of works in the way that actual relationships do, and that the argument is very one note. It's about one thing, but you keep bringing all of these other things into it, and you bring up other things about the relationship into it to try and make your point even more, valid. You want to win the argument, and that's what kind of keeps the film going. I didn't find myself bored by it. I understand that may not be the same for everyone, but I didn't get bored by it at all.
So, when I was taking notes about this film and just thinking about what am I going to say, I kind of broke it down into 4 categories. I talked about the visuals, the audio, the performance, and the narrative. And what's interesting is that for 3 of the 4, I actually quite like what they did. I like the visuals. I think the film looks very nice. It's shot on film. It's black and white. It has like a nice pop to it, I think. But the issue I have with it is that Francis Ha uses black and white, for example, for it's almost like a Polaroid. It's capturing this point in someone's life, but I don't necessarily think that the black and white does anything for this film. Like, it's there, but there's no real reason why.
I thought that the black and white in the film was used to kind of contrast how there are two colors, two people arguing. But I don't know if I agree with what you were saying. I don't know if it really did much for me in terms of it looked nice at points, but
it does. Here's one of my issues with the film is that regardless of how I feel about the narrative and everything, I feel like this film definitely does make a big attempt to be quite cool.
Yeah,
I
definitely.
think it's quite cliche in that way. So you have the black and white. Every time there's a break in the arguments, you'll get these shots of Zendaya smoking.
Yeah, or the dancing.
You'll get this weird shot of. So there's this point where John David Washington is dancing, and that's fine. And then he does this hop onto the windowsill, and he dances, and it's almost like when you look at the room and see the layout of the room, that ledge is quite thin. So it's a small detail, but like, well, I was like, why would you just jump on that and dance? It's because it's almost like he's acting as if there's a camera there. You know what I mean? It just feels like they try a lot of these things that are just cool at the moment, and I don't know, like I don't think that's necessarily a negative, but it doesn't. It was just like, okay, I get it.
It feels very theatrical for sure. Like the way, like you said, like at the very beginning, like it was cool. I think the soundtrack's really really cool. They have James Brown in there, and then they have all these moments, like you said, where between all these arguments, they kind of have this more of a montage scene, or just a moment where they kind of dance around the house, and there's all these sweeping camera shots and stuff, and it's nice. But I also,
That's something I really love about it, is the score and
yeah,
the soundtrack to it. That's something I did search up after, and found some of those songs and
yeah.
save them, because I do really like it, and I think it does work within the film.
Yeah, like you said though, like it is kind of like it's trying to be too theatrical at points, like without getting into. I mean, to be fair, even if I wanted to, I don't even know if I could get into particular spoilers, because the film is literally argument after argument with moments of I guess, yeah, like music and sexiness in a way, but it doesn't feel very sincere. So as a result, a lot of the film, in my opinion, kind of meanders in between all these arguments. And yeah, I mean, moving on from, like, well, not moving on even, if we're sticking with the visuals for a second as well, like you said, like it all kind of warranted the using the black and white, and then on top of that, the grain or the high noise in the film kind of, I don't know, it just felt all a bit strange to me. Like it was all just chosen last minute, like you said. Like it looks cool, but I don't know the reason why, and I kind of don't really care. It didn't really warrant me to care enough.
Sometimes, obviously, I think we all agree that the film looks really nice, but sometimes you've got to draw the line between what's the stylistic purpose of this, and does it actually have an effect on the story. I think it does, like Lewis said, it does the black and white does contrast the relationship, but it also kind of contrasts how modern that apartment is they're in, and the kind of modern relationship that they seem to have. But you have got to establish if it actually works within the film. Like you said, Mike, when he gets up and starts dancing on that ledge, you do think he's performing to the camera, and it does pull you out a little bit.
I think the film's biggest issue overall is sort of like that. The film just sort of lacks this sense of, why is everything happening? Why is this there? Why are we watching these people? What is this story? And I think I understand what they're trying to do. It's a cool concept. Let's make a film that's just an argument in a room, shoot it nicely, and just have it rely on the performance. I compared it to Fences, which is actually funny because it stars John David Washington's father, Denzel, and Viola Davis. And the thing is, Fences is adapted straight from a stage play, so it has the same thing. It's very much in one location mostly, and it relies on the performance of these actors. And I just think that film does such a better job narratively, of explaining, why have they made this a film, and it, the performances are, it's weird because I like the performances in this film, but again, the narrative and the script make it hard for it to be a good performance, if that makes sense. Like, I like what Zendaya does, and I like what John David do, but the script holds them back. I think the thing that annoys me about this film the most is the potential. And I think the director turned this into a bit of like a self-obsessed vanity project.
Definitely, it feels very indulgent.
I think Mark Kermode put it perfectly when he reviewed it for the BBC, that it, like you said with Fences, that was originally a stage play. I think something like this almost seems written to be a stage play. The sort of monologues that characters have, and it is constant throughout the film. I think something like this, as obviously as great as it does look, and I still like the film overall, but I think it would work better as a stage play. But obviously, you're not going to get that audience that you quite want with that. But I think that the way the narrative works is definitely, for the stage rather than for film.
Yeah. Well, like you're saying about it working as a stage play, like if we move on to like the narrative side of it, I do feel like it needs a bit more substance, or it definitely has the style. Like, as much as it sometimes is over theatrical, and kind of makes me go like, why? I guess that's cool, but why? But like actually the story itself, I did find it kind of, at first it was interesting. This director who comes home with his partner, and there's obviously something off. Zendaya, kind of, you see her to start with, and you can tell that she's not, something's not quite right. Something happened in the evening, and as the movie goes on, I expected it. I mean, it does something new in a way, but I expected it to slowly, open up about what actually is the reason something happened in that night. But it is definitely more about, I guess, this director and his frustrations with the film industry. And I guess that can be interesting, but it just felt very insincere, especially when, like, 30 minutes of the film, he rants about the initial responses of his film, and he's basically just berating like this critic. And I can understand where the director was coming from and the writing of it. And Zendaya's part in the film is essential when she's kind of talking about how he's taken her story. And that could be quite a big point that a lot of films do. A lot of real life directors do that, but it basically kind of devolved into just shouting.
In regards to what you said, Lewis, about that half hour where he talks about the LA critic, I looked into that. I wanted to see, okay, one, I thought it was kind of really bizarre. It felt really weird, and I think it actually broke up the pacing of the film when they started going off about this critic. That whole segment, where John David Washington's character Malcolm just berates this critic on this like 10-minute rant that's non-stop.
Yeah, and Zendaya's just there watching it.
Yeah, and she's like watching and smiling, and as if like, yeah, this is this is something he does, and it's like, I think one that encapsulates how unhealthy these characters are. But anyway, I looked into this critic, and it's based off this review that Kate Walsh did from the LA Times about his film Assassination Nation, which has almost like a similar problem to this, where so basically the film is supposed to be almost like a female empowerment film, and so she talks about, so she starts off the review saying, this film's got spirit and style, it's energetic, it's a blood-slicked horror flick. It's she gives it props for doing some things right. It's not like this woman teared apart his film. But then she goes on to say, this film that's supposed to be about feminism tore apart. When you break it down, the whole film is shot, and it sexualizes the main characters incredibly, to an extreme degree. She talks about how it's violence and on behalf of that cause, but the way it's shot is, it's a complete. Here's a quote. Visually, Levinson makes clear his target. So she talks about how the film's supposed to be about feminism. But he makes clear his target. Him and his cinematographer Marcel Rev establish a leering gaze directed at the girls' nubile bods, and they take much delight in wringing every sexy moment out of attacking young women, shooting scenes of violence that are gratuitously pornographic. This is common in the horror genre, but this goes above and beyond. And the difference is that Dario Argento, a horror director, never ended his films with a boneheaded lecture about feminism. So I think it's interesting that that review coaxed a 30-minute segment out of his whole film. And I think when you break that down, it's symptomatic of the problem with the whole film. Is that the whole film is this is the one thing I find most problematic in the film, and it's not something that everyone agrees with. Of course, I completely understand why you wouldn't agree with it, but for me, he talks about race in the film industry, but he establishes himself as this character through this black director. And I think so. Basically, he's using his views as a fairly wealthy white person, his experiences in the industry, and voicing them through this up and coming black director who's been through hardship. And I think that's problematic to me. And it's also quite it's brash, and it's kind of it made me feel kind of gross.
Well, that's why we were going back to the idea of it feeling insincere. I understand that maybe. Well, throughout the film, this, like you said, John David Washington's character, he says like, "Oh, I bet she's gonna compare me to the next Barry Jenkins, the next Spike Lee," and it just felt very strange that, like, obviously he had this vendetta, this character had this vendetta against this critic, and like you just said, like that is probably a comparison of what happened with Assassination Nation and the reviews that came out for that. And yeah, I don't think it's really, I do find it problematic and not right that he's kind of used, like you said, like this director who's obviously had issues in the industry because he was black, and basically kind of comparing it to himself, or at least reflecting his issues, this, like you said, this wealthy white man. And even then, if it's not, it's just such a strange point to put in your film if you're not trying to say anything about what you've experienced, because like all films that are written and directed obviously need to draw. I mean, they even say it themselves, like the director says he draws from his real life, he draws from his Marie in the film. So he's just pulling in like all these issues that he's saying he's faced, but just putting it through his character who is black, and he's had these issues in Hollywood, and it just doesn't feel right, or it doesn't feel like his story to tell, basically.
I do think that the contrast that I have with that I know that we've had a chat about it before, is that you've got to draw a line at some point about what certain people can and can't choose to write a story about.
It's true,
just because obviously I'm not perfect at saying it's completely fine, but a white director can quite perfectly make a film about a black protagonist. We saw it with John David Washington last year with Tenet. I know it's completely different circumstance and different themes of the film. So I think the only contrast we have is where is that line of establishing what you can make a film about. And I understand completely, like, I didn't know who directed this film before I went into it. I didn't know about his previous film, but for me, bringing up the critic comments and the fact that some of those critic comments are can he make a film, like, can the character in the film make a film with a female protagonist when that female protagonist is going through these various issues. And so he's directly bringing that up, and I think it's a form of self-awareness that he is a white director making a film, a black director, and that black director is making a film about a black woman. And I find that there's a lot of unfair criticism being said around this film, because they seem to think, or people seem to think, that the director doesn't seem to know what he's doing. And in my opinion, I think he's incredibly self-aware with this film, and I think he knew exactly what he was doing. I don't think it's necessarily making people dislike your film is the best way to do it. I think that is what he set out to do in a way. Obviously, there's people that still do like the film. I like the film, but
I think there's two issues. The one for me is that he builds his whole film around it. I think it's okay to comment on things and reflect yourself and be self-aware of what you're inflecting. But it feels like so much of his film is devoted to that as one thing. And the other thing is, Malcolm in the film talks about how she gives him a good review on the next one. So he talks about how she hated his last one, but she loves his new one. And I think that means, to me, that he thinks she's going to watch that movie and be like, wow, this is a great film.
But then we do establish that the movie review came out and she liked it, but for all the wrong reasons.
But no, but
so
my
even
point
though
is
she
that
still doesn't like it, for the reason it was made.
I think that he thinks that in real life, this woman who dogged his last film is going to watch Malcolm and Marie and be like, this is amazing. And I think it's fair.
The opposite.
I think it's fair for me to say that because there's so much personal inflection in that character, and him saying that it's not a far stretch for me to believe that he genuinely believes he's that. He thinks that she's going to watch him, but this is great. I think that the film is that self-obsessed.
I think I thought they could have definitely added the LA Times person in differently. I think the fact that it was like a 30-minute
half
rant.
An hour.
It was
felt
of
him
like
attacking an individual. That's
I do agree with that.
It did go on. It's a third of his film. a third of his film is dedicated to attacking one woman.
It sounds like he kind of just went out of his way to make a big part of his film to just at someone. just like a film diss track, basically, on this one reviewer.
I think that's the shame. I think the shame is that he's made this beautiful looking film with this nice soundtrack, and he's got these great actors, and he's wasted it by writing a script that's purely about himself.
Back on the whole actor front, like you just said, can we? I think it was really good to see, because I don't think we've seen Zendaya in a more kind of mature role, like, because she was a child actor, I believe, and obviously she's been in Spider-Man as well. And it's quite nice. I know she didn't have loads to work with, but it was good to see her range and how she dealt with a.
We've kind of come full
different
circle in that way, because in the last podcast we were talking about all of these Disney Channel actors that were, cute as kids and that they were never going to be anything more, and she's kind of gone the opposite way in terms of this. She's really impressive in this, I find.
Well, actually, the director of Malcolm and Marie, he directed Euphoria, right? I think he is the creator of that show. So I guess that can parallel, obviously Zendaya in Malcolm and Marie, she is a former drug addict and she's gone through rehabilitation, and maybe that's I feel like he's drawing again from Euphoria and kind of instances in his life.
Like it carried over.
Yeah, but I think the chemistry between the director and Zendaya is great, though. He does get a great performance out of it.
Yeah, definitely. He knows how to bring that. I will admit, like I said, I think the performances are good with what they're working with, and I think Zendaya particularly does shine. She shows a lot of versatility, I think. She goes from, at the beginning she's like a stone wall, and then she goes to emotional, then she goes to a different level of emotional where she's like not really reacting, and then there's happy moments. Like, it is very versatile, and I think Zendaya handles it very well, because it is almost just like this one scenario, but you do, like, for what we lack of learning about her character, we learn about her personality just through Zendaya's performance. I think that's one of the strongest parts of the film.
She definitely shows her range in the movie, and it kind of makes me excited for June now as well.
Yeah, I'm definitely excited to see her in whatever she does next. I mean, even John David Washington, I'm not the biggest fan of him, or at least from what I've seen. I think Black Klansman is great, and he is good in the film, but he is not. I will say in my opinion, he wasn't the best part of that film, and it's the same with Tenet. To be honest, I actually feel like he was a bit too hammy in Tenet for me. But Malcolm and Marie, he does good with what he has, and I actually think
that's kind of.
Oh, sorry, Cam.
Sorry, Liz.
I was just gonna say, I think that scene with the mac and cheese, I don't know why, but I think he acts really well in that scene, because he's such an awful character in that film.
No, I agree. I think they both had great performances in that film, but I think an issue I had was that because they're both so eccentric and so out there, they're both trying to have, this is my great performance and this is my great performance. They kind of clash a little bit, and to an extent where it doesn't feel like a film as much, if you know what I mean.
Yeah,
I said earlier, if it were on stage, it would feel more justified.
Yeah.
But people don't talk like that normally. They don't have the monologues. I think some of them are really great, but I think people don't talk like that normally.
Definitely very over
That's something that did pull me out of it a little bit.
The big thing about the film is, I know we've compared it to a stage play, but I think I'd actually compare it more to an acting exercise. It feels like something that two actors would do and just run off each other. Just to, again, like I said, it shows off Zendaya well. It showcases both of these characters' acting abilities. The narrative isn't great, but if this was obviously an acting exercise, it wouldn't matter. I think that's kind of what it feels like, because the whole story just doesn't hit me enough. So it just feels like I'm just watching these two actors vibing off each other. And sometimes it does get like I said, they do carry the film, I think, on their shoulders in terms of that, because I think the pacing's off. I don't think the pacing of the story is very well done. And like I said, I've already told you guys I'm not a big fan of the narrative, but the actual actors' performances are probably what kept me watching, I think.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think they were both great. I am looking forward to seeing what Zendaya does next as well.
True, yeah.
Should we wrap it up with a star rating?
I mean, I've gave it, I think, the highest out of everyone here. I gave it a 4 out of 5 on Letterboxd. I really enjoyed it. Obviously, narrative issues are the main thing that keeps it a little bit down. I think if I do rewatch it a couple of times, it might be closer to a 7. It's definitely not going to be 7 out of 10. It's definitely not going to go any higher. But yeah, I quite liked it. I'd give it an 8 out of 10.
I'll jump in here, real smooth like, and give it a good old tasteful 5 out of 10.
Yeah, that sounds about right for me as well. I'd say it didn't exceed my expectations, but it didn't actually, surprisingly, maybe I wasn't just that excited for it, but it wasn't like an awful film by any means. It's definitely very watchable, and the performances and the visuals, the soundtrack's great. It's just that narrative where it feels to a point where I was invested within like the first 10 minutes, and then I could see where it was going, and then it didn't go where it was going. It just kind of stayed where it was the entire film, and then it ends. And that's not awful sometimes, but I don't know. Maybe it was just all right. So a 5 out of 10 sounds about right to me.
Yeah, I gave it a 2 out of 5, so I gave it a 4 out of 10. I think I gave it the lowest rating out of everybody. I think obviously people could see that coming. Like I said, I did like how the film looked. I liked the soundtrack. I liked the performances. There were just things that brought it down quite a bit for me, but I definitely think it's a good effort. Like I mean, obviously this guy is good with his actors, and and he's got a creative relationship with his cinematographer at the very least, and I think something good could come from that. I just think he needs to check how much what his script is, and how much of it just comes across as a little bit whiny. But yeah, that's the film.
And also, I think we need to kind of give it praise for being a film filmed during lockdown.
That's true. That is a
It's
great.
all-
Yeah, it was the first
really,
film.
really well to create a full feature length film.
Mm.
I think it was 22. There are 22 cast members on it, I think.
crew members.
Yeah, well, you see at the beginning they show
really
them.
impressive.
It shows everyone who actually worked on the film, and I liked that. I liked that it kind of gave tribute to the fact that they had to all work with each other under COVID restrictions, and
Yeah.
I mean, I definitely commend it for that.
Yeah, but yeah, let's move on. A film that came out at the end of last year. Probably going to win Best Animated Feature. Well, we'll see. Finn, do you want to introduce it?
Do you like jazz? Well, have we got a film for you? It's a bit of soul ridden, bit of Disney Pixar. It's a film called Soul, and as you would expect with a lot of Disney Pixar films, for me personally, it's a pretty Disney Pixar have this great track record of just kind of handing out above average films constantly, and this for me hits the mark as well. Would you like me to do my impression of Soul, Sam, or would you like me to just kind of say the kind of director and all that kind
tell
of
us
stuff?
what you thought. Tell us what you thought.
The director.
Actually, yeah.
was,
Give us a little what's the story about first?
Well, the director's Pete Docter. It stars Daveed Diggs, Jamie Foxx, Tina Fey, to name a few.
Richard Ayoade.
Well, Richard Ayoade's in it. Yeah, no, he is. So basically, it's about this music teacher who's a part-time teacher, and his main passion is basically playing jazz. He got really into it because his dad took him to a jazz show, and he saw it and just got really, really enveloped in this world of jazz. Unfortunately, like a lot of people, his dreams didn't really come true. So he just kept trying to join jazz groups and make it big, but kind of didn't settle, but had to take a part-time job. Finally, this guy gets his big break. There's a famous jazz musician who has an opening for a piano keyboard player, and he's there. He's ready. He finally gets it, and he falls down this manhole cover, and unfortunately he dies, and his soul gets taken to the spoiler. It's in the trailer, so I think it's okay. And the soul gets taken away up to this kind of conveyor belt. And I feel like I'm now just describing this describing the movie.
What do you think of it, Finn?
What I think of it, Well, it kind of made me. Good.
That's a very long-winded explanation there.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, I don't know where I was taking it. I kind of, in my head, I just kept thinking of how it started, and
Finn
I
was
just
about
kept
to take
talking.
the length of the film.
You're like
to tell
replaying the
us
whole
what
film in your
film's
head.
about.
It was just going over the film in my head, and I was like, just tell them about what happens. So I really enjoyed. You could say this movie had some soul. So I think it hits the for me it hits the emotion. Shut up. It's the emotionally it hits like you'd expect with a lot of Pixar films. They tackle death quite well and also make it almost quite comedic and scary at the same time. They have the two characters. I forgot what they're called because my memory's terrible.
Which
But
one?
the two main characters of the kind of the baby soul played by Tina Fey.
Oh, it's like 22.
22, sorry, yeah, 22, and the jazz musician. They have really great chemistry and they work really well together. I think it's beautifully animated, although when they are souls, they kind of have like a fuzzy outline, and I thought my eyes were going a bit crazy. So although it was pretty beautiful, it did make me feel like I need to eat some carrots or something. that bit was
That's why
good.
my eyesight might be bad.
I think
Yeah.
what I really liked is in recent years, there's been some original ones, but Pixar have been on a bit of a run where they're releasing a lot of sequels and remakes and so forth. And I think Inside Out I didn't necessarily like it too much, but it was a new idea, as new as it can be with Pixar. But I think this is a really interesting idea, and I think we'll probably get into a little bit more of it later. But the way in which it deals with the topic of death, and it shows it to kids, and but it doesn't feel morbid at all. It's a fun film, and it's kind of a good lesson. It's something that you show your kids, and then when they grow up, they'll watch it again, and they'll have a completely different view of what they saw when they were younger. And I mean, I really liked it for those reasons. I know, Mike, you loved it for that kind of reason too, didn't you?
Probably the strongest part about this film for me was the visuals. I think Pixar are really good at obviously mastering that all the time, but I think what really stands out about this one is that they're actually animating real people as well. Not just like, obviously they've done it before in like Toy Story and whatsoever, but I think when you're going through New York, it just all looks brilliant. Because I thought obviously the breathtaking part would be, the Great Beyond or the Great Before, and yeah, they both look great. In particular, I liked. Is it the Zone? Is it called the Zone? Where they say
like the end zone.
when you're feeling it. No, like
The
like,
void.
when you're like.
Oh yeah, I know.
When he's
what you
like
mean.
playing music and he like feels it. Yeah, he's like in the zone. Yeah, I called it the Zone. I think that's the Zone looks good. Is what I'm trying to say, and I thought that was very creative. I think the character design, sorry, is very creative visually. How everyone looks. I think it all just looks really, really nice. It's probably one of the best animated films visually I've seen in a while. It's really nice.
I think what Pixar do so well is when they create a character and when they have that character do what they love, they just show it really well.
Yeah, they can really portray like the dreams and aspirations that someone has in their film, and they can do it in such inventive ways. Well,
Definitely.
like you were saying with the visuals, I will say like all the people stuff looks like jaw dropping. The way they've done the lighting, like especially in his classroom, as soon as the film started, I was like amazed by the detail. And that's why like I will say that one of the only parts of the film visually that I was not as chuffed about was Is It the Great Before? Like it looks great, but I really did want to go back to the New York stuff because that looks amazing. Like, and even the Great Beyond, like that whole trippy part when he falls off and like the title credits come up and it's like all this weird psychedelic imagery of him like moving through like this cosmic time and space. It looks great.
Yeah, it was like Interstellar almost, that part. Like,
Yeah.
It felt very. But no, we did briefly mention the fact that the Attack on the Death. We'll get into it more later, but I just wanted to say when I really liked the first, like, I don't know, what is it, 20 minutes of the film where they set up the fact that this is going to be one of the best days of his life. And he falls through. And I think what surprised me was the performance in that sequence where he's on that conveyor belt. It'd be quite easily to make a straight joke out of it, but I do think it was that moment where he's panicking, and it does feel, you feel like, oh my god, like he is dead, and they say it, like, oh man, this is your time, and that he's like panicking to get away, and he's like, in that swarm of people. It was almost like a very claustrophobic sequence. I think it was a good touch. Instead of just him being alone, there's the first part of him just being there by himself, but then when he gets swarmed by those people, there's something about that. It matched his emotion. He's freaking out, and the claustrophobia of him just being in that crowd. I think it was a nice touch.
I agree.
I mean, I was put off a little bit by that. Obviously, I agree with everything you said in that, but that when he did go into the crowd, it kind of was a bit odd how he was the only one freaking out, if you get what I mean. I know they had to do that for the story.
That does make sense. Yeah, I agree.
But on obviously this is, it's a Pixar film. I'm not holding up by the standards that everything needs to be completely, realistic. But that did throw me off a little bit. And there's a few instances in the film where that sort of thing does happen. They should be kind of freaking out. If they're all souls and they've just got there, they presumably have the same, reaction as he does. Obviously, some of the characters, like they say, they're kind of expecting it. They were waiting for, for death. But like you said, it does show in his performance really well how desperate he is to get back. Not just because he doesn't want to die, but because he wants to be better himself. He could have just gave up in that instance, but he carried on. That drives the film forward.
He wants to fulfill his dreams, and I like how profound it takes in that direction. And I will say, I mean, we'll get onto it when we speak about the narrative. There are some issues I have with the film, with him trying to basically fight death. There are moments in it where I felt a bit it's not as profound or crazily inspirational as it could have been, or not inspirational, sorry, ambitious as it could have been. But all the stuff with even the what are they called in the film, the Jerrys, the people that control this state. I found their animation very interesting. This 2D. I read somewhere that Pixar, to make those characters, they in real life they crafted chicken wire, and they moved they used Play-Doh and everything. And they said the one thing in the film is the characters outside of real life, or outside of what is supposed to be Joe Gardner's life, have to be completely different to them all. So they made them not 3D. They chose to only solely do their characters in 2D, which I found really interesting.
That's quite cool.
Yeah,
they did something similar to that in Inside Out as well, and I thought that worked really well. So they brought it back, and it also worked.
Before we get to the narrative, the big chunk, I also had a couple little notes on audio and performance. First thing I wanted to say is I actually found the soundtrack underwhelming, considering his passion is jazz and stuff and playing. I don't think there were a couple of scenes, but I don't think there was anything that was really... I guess obviously we're spoiled by movies like, Damien Chazelle's films when it comes to love for music, but I just think Pixar usually commit so wholeheartedly to what they're doing that when they were making a film like this about this guy whose passion is music, I expected a lot, I think, and I was just underwhelmed a bit by the soundtrack. I'm not saying it's bad, but
I know what you mean.
It didn't particularly stand out. I didn't finish that and go, wow, there's that one song I really want to listen to. You know what I mean?
And even the moment when he kind of it shows his love for music, I think that scene is so nice in the way it's done. But it kind of made me laugh in this, or not in the cinema, even when I watched it, because he's supposed to be this jazz musician, and they ask him to play something, and he just goes on this weird ballad trip, and I thought that the music was great, but I remember thinking that's just not what they're playing. So, and they never explained that, but I did like that everyone's love for their craft would just end in this weird void, like you said, the what did you call it, the zone?
I call it, I did love that aspect of it. The idea that's everyone knows that feeling, when you're doing something you really enjoy and everything just sort of fades away. I like the idea that they connected that
cool.
They gave it its own area. It was beautiful.
Yeah.
I did have an issue with, we'll call it the zone, in a few instances towards the end.
I think I know. Yeah,
I think we can get into that when we talk more about the narrative. But I guess we can start about the narrative.
Yeah. Well, just before narrative, just one small key note before narrative is, I just wanted to do a quick shout out to the performances, Jamie Foxx and Tina Fey.
Great.
I think Jamie Foxx was great.
I thought Jamie Foxx is great, and what was surprising to me is that I usually have a strong distaste for Tina Fey. I'm not her biggest fan. I usually find her quite annoying, but I actually think she was really good in this film. I think she played the character really well.
Yeah, it's the same.
She was funny. She was quite emotional. It was good.
I think their dynamic really sold it.
Yeah, when you see when you see her name, when I saw her name, and I was like, oh, okay, so she's in this film. I was a little bit like, oh, is this going to be a bit like, almost like how Finding Nemo gets the balance of Ellen DeGeneres right, but then Finding Dory just takes it overboard. Like I was like, okay, is this just gonna kind of like kill the film for me? But no, it was actually really good, and I thought it was good. I just wanted to give a quick props to the performance.
Nice,
straight up.
Well, do we want to start? I mean, where do we want to start with the story? We do, I guess we're gonna spoil it as we go anyway. So
is it spoiler alerts from this
so it's on Disney Plus. It's been out for a while now.
Yeah, it should be fine.
Yeah, but
should be fine.
A big issue I had with the film, which isn't necessarily the film's fault, is mainly just because it seems like a trope nowadays, is the whole body swapping angle.
Yeah, I was unsure about that scene.
He goes into the body of the cat, and she goes into his body, and it's interesting, and they got to play around with. I like the idea that they explored her going about his life, but looking at it completely differently. So the little things that he does that he doesn't think much of, she comes out in a completely different way, and it gives him a different perspective on his own life. Maybe you don't need the biggest of dreams to be able to live your life happily, but it was the body swapping element that is so overused nowadays, and it kind of as soon as that happened, I thought, it's going to be one of these films now.
Yeah, that's what like that stuff with the body swapping, it didn't feel as ambitious as the rest of the film. But I do, like you said, like I think at first when they swap bodies, and the way they do it, we'll talk about like that zone area as well with Graham Norton in a bit. But like the way they do it at first, I was very not into it, but I really did love the scenes with his mum and like him watching.
I was actually
22 talk through his body and kind of. I was
just going to say that, Lou. I don't mean to cut you off. I'm just going to quickly interject something really quickly. I think if they'd have done the body swapping multiple times, then I would have had an issue with it. But I think it sets up, like Lewis said. I'll let Lewis finish his point, obviously. It sets up, those scenes that Lewis is talking about. Carry on, Lewis.
Oh yeah, I was just going to say, like, exactly. It just feels very that those parts kind of feel more connected to the film's like profound ideas when he's kind of remembering his life and like all the stuff when he's in the barbershop, I wasn't too sure about because it felt a bit like obviously it's a kids film, so they can't go too deep into it, but it did feel like, it's just life, you can live it how you want, you can be happy, and it's sometimes not as simple as that. But when he's talking about his ambitions and his dreams with his mum, or specifically 22 is, and he's watching it as the cat, I felt that was very deep, and I feel like the parts about the film about him wanting to do what he's always dreamed of and pursuing it and literally cheating death, that those aspects I found really profound and actually quite heartwarming. Like I did get quite choked up. It was only the stuff where it felt easy to just say, like, I mean, this will go into the ending, so we'll talk about that later, because I think the main thing in the film that I have a problem with is the ending. But it's just kind of like, yeah, I can live my life, that's fine. And it's like, I think there's more to it, but I really did like it.
We won't get into too many negatives to start with. We'll keep talking about the good stuff, and then we'll get into that and hit it home. But Finn, what did you think? I
was just gonna say, I kind of felt sad when they body swapped, and the soul. Well, I enjoyed how the soul who didn't want to go to Earth experienced Earth things and was like, this isn't so bad. And it was kind of good to see that character progress and change her kind of what she thought of Earth. Being there and changed her ways over the time of the movie. But I felt sad for Jamie Foxx's character when he was watching her in his body, and she was just living his life almost better. Like there's a barber scene where they normally always talk about Jazz normally, but because they switched bodies, she started talking to more people, and we found out more about the barber, and people enjoyed the change of the character, although they didn't know that the body was swapped. And I kind of felt bad for the main character as the cat, watching on and seeing someone else live their life almost better,
Yeah,
and just
it is a nice
actually,
message.
being more proactive.
that does feed that situation actually feeds into one of my issues with the film is the almost like the last third. I don't think it's bad. I think it gets messy. I think actually the film could have done with maybe being like 10, 15 minutes longer. And I'll just go quickly into why. First off, I think I do enjoy all the stuff where he's learning lessons on how to live life a bit less. So he learns to become less self-absorbed, and he also learns to become, he learns to enjoy the small things as well. But my issue is, I actually think he seems like they don't give him enough time after the third act to redeem himself, because there's that whole situation where he berates 22 and like tells her, you're only enjoying life because it's my life, bada bada bada, and like he like goes so far as to try and like force her. He's like, no, you're not living, I'm living. And like in the scale of the film, that's actually quite big, and it's almost like something sort of evil that he did. And I don't think they give him enough time afterwards to redeem himself. For me, I really liked his character up until the last third, and then he seemed a bit like an asshole. And I don't think they gave him enough time to redeem himself. Like, I get the finale, he makes that decision, and it's supposed to fix things. But in my opinion, in terms of actually viewing the character, the decision is great, but they don't give him enough to change how I feel about him again. Like I said, once he did that, I was like, it seemed so out of left field, and it just made him seem incredibly selfish to a high degree. Where I was like, okay, well, this is an issue now, because now it made me enjoy the last part of the film less.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things that Pixar kind of explain away as it's a kids' film, and the main character did the right thing in the end, and that's kind of all that, because that's the only message the kid needs really. But Pixar, set themselves to a higher standard of creating more in-depth films for adults too, and obviously, that's kind of the perspective that we took from it. And the film does have a lot of great elements, but things like that you mentioned at the end it did put me off. I think in the same way it did you, because it doesn't feel like it came full circle enough. And it didn't resolve itself enough.
Yeah, I agree.
And then in the end, one of the things that I hated as well, I'm not saying I would have liked the character to have died in the end, but the way that they just give him the free pass back to Earth.
Yeah,
for no reason
that
at all.
kind of, I feel like the ending needed him to die personally, and I know it's a kids' film, so they couldn't really do that in a Pixar film, having the main character die. But I feel like they could have handled it in a better way than just kind of being like, okay, well, obviously we've already said spoilers, but they're like, okay, well, you've redeemed yourself, so you get another chance at life. Because I thought that the whole film was setting up that there was no way he could escape death. I mean, I thought that was kind of the idea. And I would have preferred it, because it feels like in the film he's supposed to be this teacher who doesn't understand at the beginning. He can't teach these kids. He doesn't feel enthusiastic about it. And then he teaches 22 how to live, basically, berates her, which I agree is kind of a strange part in the film. And then he kind of gets her back. And I thought it was gonna go in the direction where he wouldn't be able to go back to his life, but he could choose to teach all the souls what life is like to worth living if he wanted to stay behind and help. And I think that would have been a more interesting way of ending it. Not saying like I know not saying like I know how to end the film, but I feel like that was a cop-out ending.
Another issue with the ending is that I think the film does great to start with, where it establishes that this character has died, and that kind of the emotions he's going through in that instance. But then they introduce 2 or 3 different ways in which he can return to Earth. So like obviously they've got the pass, which he goes with 22 to get back to Earth, and that's not the conventional way of doing it, but that's a way that he can get back.
Yeah.
Another way is through Graham Norton's character creating whatever kind of portal back, which I think is ridiculous. And then the third way is they just open the portal and let him, like the Jerrys, they let him. Is it the Jerrys?
Yeah, the Jerrys. They like
yeah,
let him back
they-
or whatever.
They let him back. So there's three ways. So a film about escape and death is pretty much. Oh no, it's not about escape and death, but that's what they established in the beginning. They offer too many alternatives, and I think that was an issue that arose at the end, at least.
Yeah, I think the Graham Norton stuff specifically, I remember finding it fun, but it also felt very like I don't know, the ship stuff in this kind of nowhere area and everyone's kind of zoned out and they've lost their purpose. Like I thought it was kind of cool when, they save someone and he's in like this Wall Street job, like a stockbroker, and he's like, "What am I doing with my life?" That was quite funny. But
I thought it's funny, but I really dislike the whole.
yeah.
Because you're playing piano, you're in the zone. You go to the afterlife, not afterlife, but the great beyond.
Yeah.
I think that was a bit ridiculous.
Yeah, that did feel
because
very
how many
strange to me.
times
I
has
know
he
what you
done
mean.
that before when he's playing piano?
Yeah.
And
yeah.
it's never happened to him before, but now he knows it's there. He can do it. Like, how do you know it's there in the first place? Do you have to have died and come back? I'm thinking about it in too much detail.
I think that is a way that you could just sort of explain it away. I have no issue, like, because realistically, I know I said it could have been 10 minutes longer, but like if you're making it longer just to explain how he gets back there, I think that would just drag the film down. So I'm okay with the decision that they made, where he's probably one of the first people to die and go back to Earth. So the idea that he knows how to get back because he's aware that when you're in the zone, you're in that area, I don't think that's too far-fetched.
Yeah.
No, I get that. I think the thing I mean is the creating the portal to go back whenever you want.
Yeah. I think
like Graham Norton's character is a guy that sign spins in the street, and that he can come back whenever and back and forth whenever he wants to the great
Wait, the
beyond
spinning
world.
guy was Graham Norton?
yeah, that was great.
What?
Oh my
Did you
God,
watch
Finn.
the film?
No way.
Did you watch it?
It's
Yeah,
not
man,
like
I wanna-
it's not a plot twist. They just kind of establish it.
It's like quite big in the film, actually.
Find
Yeah.
out
And they
that
also
Graham
have
Norton
they
is,
also
is
have
big.
the same voice.
Yeah, I didn't know. I just didn't think it was Graham Norton.
And it's surprised. It's such a
Ah.
weird like casting
But yeah,
choice. to
that's
have
what I
Graham
mean.
Norton
Though
in there.
that a sign spinner can, whilst he's spinning a sign, suddenly he can transport back and forth from this place, and that kind of, it felt like they needed a way for him to get back, and that was all they could think of. And I think if they put a bit more thought to it, they could have established something. You kept the same story, but
Give us an
Yeah.
found
example.
a better way to go back and forth.
Well, I was really. Like, I was hoping for. I was hoping for more of like a I didn't have to be like this, but like a Christmas Carol-esque, like Ebenezer Scrooge kind of watches his whole life again. And I think that definitely the moments with Graham Norton and the ship in this kind of weird zone world, it was fun. But I definitely think that was more for like for kids to like enjoy the imagery and like this world. Whereas I think my favorite parts were definitely when he kind of gets back to like his life in New York. And as much as the body swapping stuff I found problematic, once it gets into it, I think it definitely kind of, that's the sort of like feel I was thinking of when I went into Soul, especially like the first half an hour I think is great, and then it kind of takes a little bit of a dip, but then it comes back, and I really enjoy all the stuff that happens between him and 22. As much as it is literally just her like trying food and being like, oh my God, actually life is great, I can feel things and taste things, which isn't like as easy as it is in real life, but for a message for children, it's great. I'm just trying to think, there was something else that I was going to bring up that I remember.
What? Well, while you have a think of that, Lewis, I might jump in here a little.
Go for it,
little
go for
quick, A little
Take the
quickie.
stage, Finn. Take the
Yeah.
stage.
Okay then. Okay. So I think the ending, it was I think it's been said before, but it was almost a little bit rushed. Like Mike said, they needed 10 more minutes. I never felt that they were in any danger at all. Like normally in Pixar films, you get like there is some sense of danger that something could happen to the character. But when
Or like
22,
a time limit.
yeah, or something like that. But when 22 went into the turned into like a phantomy soul or whatever.
Oh yeah,
they were
like the
called.
scary thingy that
Or a
is, like,
procrastinating
yeah,
soul.
like the depressed
It kind of
soul.
they glossed over it. It was kind of like a 5-minute segment, if that.
Yeah.
Like a short little chase, and you never felt like anything bad was going to happen to him. that she was just going to wander around until she got caught. So I thought that kind of that there wasn't. I think they might have needed like a stronger like an evil presence in this film. Maybe would have.
Yeah, because they tried to do that through the little rat or
The
mole or whatever
accountant.
it was.
Yeah, I was going to say that was
accountant.
the thing I was
thought
going to
the
say.
accountant was funny.
I did think it was
I thought
funny.
he was funny.
But I don't think it. That was the threat of the film, and if you're
Yeah.
finding it funny, then clearly it's.
Yeah, I didn't.
Yeah,
I didn't
I
find
think-
that character very
I think
threatening.
the issue is if you put a direct threat in the film, I think then it becomes less about the subject matter of like death.
Yeah.
I think that is
Well,
the
Well, that's why I feel like
The-
they didn't
when-
really need that
when-
character.
when you do have that moment at the end of the film where you think he is gonna die. It is quite emotional, when he's like that moment when he says when he holds her hand and he's like, "I'll
Yeah.
go with you." She's like, "Oh, you can only go so far," and he's like, "I'll go as far as I can." That's a beautiful moment for me.
That was really nice.
And I
yeah.
think if you have if 2 seconds earlier you have him defeating like this weird death monster, I think that kind of cheapens that moment a little.
No, but I was just thinking of something, because the way they handled his character was good, but I think 22 never felt like she was in any danger.
Well, no, the danger for 22 was that she wouldn't live. When he says to her and he berates her and he says, "You're only happy because this is my body," and he takes the pass off of her, and you're like, "Oh, whoa, what the fuck?" That's the danger. You feel the brevity of that situation.
When she was in the procrastination state, though, I just thought that they probably could have used more of that, or made it a bit longer to kind of highlight it and make it feel more of a bigger deal than it did.
I agree. There could be it could have been handled a little bit better. I think that's just the time. Like I said, I think
Yeah.
they just need
Maybe
to
it's just me. I just don't think it just didn't, for some reason, didn't grab me, and it didn't make me feel like it was like such a huge deal,
Yeah.
like a huge threat to the character.
Well, it goes into like that issue of the like. I feel like it doesn't give Joe Gardner or Jamie Foxx, the main character in the film, time to kind of redeem himself, along with like actually making it. She gets really sad for like 10 to 15 minutes and goes into that weird monster, and then does kind of just come out of it fast. So I do know what you mean.
Yeah, I get that. I think it is, it's a fun film. I wasn't bored during it, but I do agree with all of you that there are some narrative things that could have been improved in it.
Definitely. Like I don't even think they needed that accountant Jerry that follows them around. I think the character was quite funny, but it didn't really have any urgency in it or anything.
I think that's the difficulty, is that like you said with that character. I think he is just there. It's hard because Pixar have set that precedent that they're not just kids films, but at the same time, I think it seems to be one of our main issues with the film is that all of these moments of like brevity and these childish relief moments. But the issue is, obviously, if you take those out, that means Pixar and Disney is having to fully commit to just a film about straight death. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like adult audiences
And I
will
think
only
that-
properly
that-
get it.
Yeah, I think that is the issue, is that they just can't. That it's they got to make money from the kids.
Yeah, but I do think they balance it fairly well. Obviously, everyone's going to have their, things that we might
definitely.
criticize, other people might really like. So there's.
I definitely think it's better than any recent Pixar film that I can remember. Like Inside Out was good, but I think I felt more emotionally affected in Soul.
Definitely.
I think you could relate a lot more to Soul with death,
Yeah.
rather than the emotions having a character each.
Yeah, true. And also, I never really had like an actual imaginary friend that I get that the idea that it's your childhood kind of going and disappearing, which was quite emotional. But I think the character in Inside Out, I can't remember the imaginary friend, but it was so annoying. Bing Bong was so annoying. Whereas Soul doesn't have any annoying characters really.
Yeah, I definitely felt more with Soul than I did Inside Out, but I still don't think I got that emotional hit that some of you guys might have. I did obviously know when it was trying to do it. I just wasn't invested enough in it. I think by the time we got to the body swapping part, I'd kind of zoned out, I guess. But not, I still paid attention, but I didn't get any of that emotional response that I should have when we got closer to the end.
I get what you mean. Yeah. I think that if they really did commit with that ending, and I mean, I still think it is a good ending. It's just definitely a safer one than if they actually committed with him, being killed off.
Safe's the word, I think, for some of the decisions they made.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which isn't bad. It's just,
Which is understandable.
I think for the most part though, it's like a stunning animation, and
Yeah.
I can't really think of any other film from last year or an animated film that will top it.
No.
No, it was a very slow year for slow year for film in general, but animation really took a hit, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, do we wanna summarize Soul? We've kind of wrapped up, unless anyone's got any other points to make.
I don't think
no,
so.
I just said I made a note there. It's probably like just above the middle in terms of Pixar's filmography. Like better than
Better than
like we
Monsters
said,
University.
Yes, better than Monsters University.
Nothing's better than Monsters University.
Better than The Good Dinosaur. Better than Inside Out for me. Obviously, it's not quite as good as some of the greats in my opinion, but yeah, it's just like that weird section just above the middle. And I said it's.
But when you got a good
3.5 out of
track
5.
record, middle round is still good.
Definitely, yeah, definitely.
I completely forgot The Good Dinosaur was a movie. I feel bad. I
God.
need to go watch it again.
Most other people have too. Don't worry about it. But yeah, I've gave it a 6 out of 10 in the end. Yeah, I really liked it. I do agree with Mike that I quite liked the music, but for a film about the music, it drops off a little bit, and the expectations weren't quite there.
Definitely.
A lot of Disney films and Pixar films have great music, but I didn't find any of this memorable. And like I said, for a film about jazz, it's not about jazz, but that's kind of the heart of it. There wasn't enough to really grip me in that instance. But yeah, 6 out of 10 for me.
7.5 out of 10. Boom. Decent, solid, heartwarming. Pixar. Fine.
7.5. You're going with
7.5, man. 7.5 out of 10. I thought it was good. I'd rewatch it again one day for sure.
No, I just meant like the 0.5. But you go with it. You roll. Oh,
sorry, 7. 7.
No, we'll go 7.5 is fine.
We're gonna go for 7. No, I'm sorry.
You don't use Letterboxd. It's fine.
I'm sorry. 7. I'm sorry. We'll go for 7.
I mean, to be fair, like a 7 sounds. Actually, I'd give it an 8. To be fair, it's a pretty solid film. Like I wouldn't, it's got issues for sure, but as like a film for an animated film from Pixar, like I love Toy Story, but I would say I had the same amount of entertainment as I did from this than Toy Story 4, to be honest. So I'd give both of them an 8.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I do love Toy Story 4 as well. It's just I don't know. I think I was just entertained all around. Yeah, it's just unnecessary.
Unnecessary.
I had the same thing. I was like, I like Toy Story 4. I like the characters. I like being back. But what's the point of this film?
Yeah, I do know what you mean. It's like I guess like another send off, but then Toy Story 3 already did that really well.
It's not a better send off than Toy Story 3, that's for sure.
Oh, definitely not. No. But like, yeah, in terms of Soul being like the best animation last year that I can think of as well, I would happily watch it again. And even though I have like the odd issue with it, the issues really do stem from the fact that it has to be a child's film, or it is for children. And like if they took those things out that I didn't like, then I think it would be too profound for children audiences, and it wouldn't really have like the fun, striking, childlike animation that they were striving for, with all like the weird kind of afterlife moments and stuff, and like all this fluffy world. Like that stuff looked cool, but definitely I think the stuff that I really liked the most were the deeper messages about, what would you spend your life, this limited amount of time on Earth, would you spend it on this one thing, and do you feel like it's worth it, and would you live the rest of your life, or like every moment of your life, as if in the now, which I think it does address, even though the ending kind of does have a cop out feel.
Mike?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I think I mentioned I gave it a 3.5 out of 5.
Out of 10?
Out of 5.
Oh. I was like, what? Out of 10? What?
Okay, so 7 out of 10.
Yeah, solid film.
Yeah.
It was the perfect pick me up after Malcolm and Marie.
Definitely.
Yeah, we don't want to end on anything too negative. I mean, I rated Malcolm very high, but we won't go.
Well, you haven't heard the
Um,
questions yet.
Yeah, so on to that, we kind of want to end every podcast where we each ask each other a question and we just have a little debate and have a talk about our answers. And Lewis, do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. So the question I had for you guys, because I was thinking about, well, we were talking about Interstellar earlier when we were saying about the visual imagery of Soul, and then I was thinking about The Dark Knight and how I do generally feel like without Heath Ledger, that film would just be subpar compared to the amount of kind of cult status it's got, or like the acclaim. So what film would you guys say where the villain outshines the hero, or the title character of the film?
Referring to just superhero films or any kind of film?
It doesn't have to be a superhero film. It could be. Let me give you an example. When I thought about the question, I thought Silence of the Lamb. I thought
Okay,
that
yeah.
I think that Anthony Hopkins outshines like Jodie Foster, every single character in that film as Hannibal Lecter. So if there's any characters that technically count as like the antithesis of the main character in the film, then that counts.
I feel like a lot of formulaic answers will go towards superhero films, so it's nice that I don't have to pick one because I don't watch an awful lot of them. But it's kind of an out of the box pick, I guess. But I recently watched Okja for
Oh hell yeah!
for the first time since it
Oh,
first came
yeah.
out, and I just think Jake Gyllenhaal really does kind of steal the show in that.
He's so good.
Such a fun but disturbing
So crazy.
character, and I think he's not the only thing that's great within the film, and I think obviously the protagonists are great too, but the film would be completely different without his presence in it, and that's something that I really love within it. And yeah, he's probably my pick for it anyway.
He's so eccentric in that film. He's so good.
I have the original Star Wars. Because
Oh, baby.
Darth Vader, man, is one of the biggest villains on screen ever, and I think when you take away, and especially in the context of, let's pretend this is 1977, you've just seen Star Wars Episode 4, and this is the only Star Wars film out. This is Star Wars as you know it. You don't know anything about what happens in the previous film. Well, the prequel films or the following films. Darth Vader is just brilliant in that film, and he has the voice, the look, everything about him. He's just so intimidating, and there's a reason he's so iconic, and I think he just shines in that movie.
Like every time I think of Star Wars, that character is iconic and everything.
It's Darth Vader, man. It's almost you could argue that it is the story of Darth Vader. He's the hero.
Well, from the prequels.
Because
It's weird. I thought you would have picked the Terminator.
Oh.
well, no, because I think that's kind of a cheat answer because he's a good guy in the rest.
Technically,
of the
he
series.
is the title character as well.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
That's true.
Sorry.
That's
Yeah,
true.
get out of here, Finn.
I'll just go fuck myself. Don't worry about me, guys.
What's your answer, Finn?
What's my answer?
Yeah, Terminator.
Oh, well, I'll tell you. I mean, it might be a cop-out. It's not a superhero one. It's a Disney film, and it's Scar. I think Scar steals the show from The Lion King.
Yeah.
Scar is awesome. I think... I mean, I love The Lion King, but I think Simba is such a vanilla hero, and Scar kind of carries the film with his personality and cunning. And he's kind of what you want from a villain.
Rafiki outshines Scar.
Yeah, but as a villain,
What, as a villain?
as a villain,
no.
Is
no, I don't
Rafiki
think
a
he-
villain?
I don't think he stole the show.
For me personally, anyway, it's opinion.
I kind of agree with Finn on that. I think
So
Scar's.
I don't think Rafiki's...
You kind of look at it. If you take Scar out of it, the film doesn't work. If you put
That
another
is true.
character in, like that kind of character in, it's completely.
Gotta love
different.
Jeremy Irons as well.
Jeremy Irons is
Oh, he's great.
fantastic.
Yeah, Jeremy Irons really does really well.
Yeah, fair. That's a pretty good one. I was thinking as well, actually, No Country for Old Men. Anton Chigurh, I think, is great. I feel like that he is like one of the top rated like movie villains
Well, and you also
in terms of like any
have
film.
like Norman Bates from Psycho.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Is it about him? So does that count as, because he's already stolen the show because it's about him?
He's still
though,
the
isn't it?
villain, though, isn't he? He's not the hero. You could argue that Silence of the Lambs is
true.
about Hannibal Lecter, really.
Yeah, that's true. What was the question? Is it just best villains or villains that steal the show?
Villains that steal the show, really. I mean, like,
Oh,
it doesn't have to be the title one, but a character that, you just remember the film and you think of the villain before you think of the hero.
anyway, next
Oh,
question.
actually, Blade Runner as well. Sorry, Karen.
Oh no, go Blade Runner.
So yeah,
Oh,
I just like looked to my right and saw Blade Runner, and I was just like, wait, of course, fucking Roy Batty in Blade Runner. But then it's against Harrison
Yeah.
Ford, so he's pretty great.
Tears in the Rain.
Such a good monologue. Anyway, sorry, yes, carry on.
Mike, do you want to go?
Yeah, I'll go for it. So my question to everyone was, what is the best movie that with relationship troubles where they end up together? So it doesn't have to be the main focus of the film, but it has to be that the couple has peril and they prevail in the end as a couple.
It's quite tricky because, I think it's the reason you asked is because a lot of films have that kind of relationship trouble and characters don't end up together. I can think of a ton that do that.
No, that's very true. That's because I know that a lot of us have Marriage Story on our minds at the moment, so I also wanted to eliminate that. But
True.
My example was actually Submarine by Richard Ayoade.
One of your favourites.
It is. It is
So
one of
good.
my all-time favourites, and I think it's great because it's just a nice, sweet moment as well when they get back together. I think it's handled very well. It's not too cheesy.
I mean, they don't even say anything.
It's the right level of loveliness, and it's great. And the whole film
Yeah.
itself is just very unique. So yeah, it stands out to me as one where they have a big issue and then they come back together, and it's just nice.
I mean, one of my favourite films is Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. That's probably the one that comes to mind
beautiful.
with, relationship troubles. Obviously it's more than that, and then they end up, I think the way they end up together is so great as well, because they end up together even though they know it's not going to work out, and they kind of just want to roll with it. And that final shot where they're running through the snow and it repeats itself 2 or 3 times as the screen fades to black. I think that's a really great touch. It kind of shows that the relationship's going to continue, and they know it's not going to work out, but the fact that they get together at the end because they want to be together, that's just a great touch. And although the film is about all of these, scientific ideas, and it's a bit surreal in that sense, the relationships are the thing that keep it grounded in the film. I think that works really well with it. I mean, I just love the film.
Yeah, I think the way their relationship is portrayed is so beautiful. Just seeing it through their memories, and I like that they use that in Arrival as well. The idea that if you know something is going to end, would you still do it all over again?
Yeah, exactly. That's
and
great.
I think that's a beautiful way to end it.
And also Jim Carrey pulling off his best performance.
True, he's great in that. Okay, so my pick, I gave it a lot of thought, and my mind did initially go to like anything Noah Baumbach has ever made, but I ended up settling on Gone Girl.
Ooh.
Because I think that film it portrays such a toxic couple. Like, they are awful, and I just love that by the end of the film they kind of deserve each other, and like it's kind of scary. It's quite a harrowing ending. Like Ben Affleck's like hiding under the sheets, and Rosamund Pike's home, and like she's like a full-on serial killer and he's stuck with her, but they kind of go through it together. And I do really like that very ending scene of them sat together on TV and they're expecting a child, and it's like this thing like, we're really damaged and awful people, but we deserve each other and they know it. And I just think in terms of like a stylish neo-noir, it does a lot with getting out of the trappings of one like that, and it just feels very stylish for a David Fincher film.
Poor Neil Patrick Harris, that's what I'm going to say.
Yeah, he gets fucked.
Poor Neil Patrick Harris.
You got any in mind, Finn?
Oh yeah. That's funny you asked that, Sam, because I do. I do.
Convenient.
It's called Crazy Stupid Love. Great film. Loved it. Hilarious. Ryan Gosling, Steve Carell really work well together. Obviously, Julianne Moore and Emma Stone are there also. You know, that it's a really fun film. And Steve Carell well, actually, Ryan Gosling's really quite funny in this film. I think it was probably the first thing I saw Ryan Gosling in.
But does Steve Carell and Julianne Moore get back together at the end of that film?
No, I'm thinking about Emma Stone and Ryan Gosling's characters.
But yeah, I think both couples get back together, don't they?
Probably.
Or it's like alluded
does-
to at least. They're stood there after the ceremony thingy and at the school, and they're chatting away.
Ryan Gosling and Emma Stone never really have any turmoil in their relationship.
They did have some turmoil because they found out that the dad of Emma Stone was Steve
but like
Carell.
between the couple themselves, they don't really have an issue with that.
True. Look at all.
I thought that was some turmoil though.
Mike's poking holes
God,
in
it
the
looks
answers.
like a
I'm just
Photoshop.
saying, it doesn't really adhere to the question very well.
I just thought it was.
It's a great
I
film.
thought,
It's a
I
great
thought
film.
why not? Why not? Because
I refuse
Ryan
that
Gosling's-
question.
Ryan Gosling's like helping Steve Carell. Basically,
No,
Ryan
I understand the
Gosling's being a
situation.
bit
I
of
understand that it's
not a scumbag, but
it's
serenading.
Steve Carell's
yeah,
problem, and it's
serenading
Ryan Gosling's
women and
problem.
stuff.
But it's not really a Ryan Gosling Emma Stone. Like they're not. They themselves aren't having issues in their relationship.
Yeah, well, it could impact. It definitely looked like it impacted their relationship a little bit because
I
Emma
think that's
Stone.
like a
Emma
technicality,
Stone
isn't it?
didn't want to because Emma Stone didn't want to speak to the dad after that.
No,
for a while.
but she did want to speak
know?
to Ryan Gosling.
Yeah, but it was because of Ryan Gosling and Steve Carell.
Okay, Ben, we can go around in circles all day. I just don't think it's
Oh.
necessarily.
God damn it, man! I tried really hard with this one, man. I'll find a different film.
I'm sorry.
I'll
No,
find
you
a
don't have
film.
to. I think it's.
I think
No,
the
find a
answer
different
is
film.
right. I think Mike just had a quarrel as to which character you were talking about.
About
I
time.
just-
There we go.
No.
About time. Is that good? Is that? I'm picking About Time. They have some.
You picked a
do
great
they,
movie.
Do
man.
they have some
You
relationship?
picked a great movie. You just picked a poor
No,
example.
wait, no. The Notebook. There we go. The Notebook. I'm
Finn.
picking The Notebook as my first choice. As
You
my
win.
first choice. The
You-
Notebook.
you win,
They
Finn.
go through some
You won the
turmoil.
question.
Finn, was The Notebook the first film you saw Ryan Gosling in by any chance?
No, it wasn't. It was a different film. It was Crazy Stupid Love, but that wouldn't count for this question because of reasons. The Notebook, they have some troubles because the
Finn,
wife forgets
Finn.
him. Oh,
Finn, I
whoopsie
think we should
daisy.
move on.
Wait, is that actually what happens in the film?
I've never seen The Notebook.
No, but when spoiler.
Yeah,
Let's
you
just
spoiled it,
move.
fine,
Let's just
don't
worry.
move on. Let's just. I know. I
Yeah,
wanna
you know
watch
what?
but
The
it's-
Notebook.
Let's
it's
let's
good.
move on. We've What's your question, Finn?
My question's shit compared to everyone else's. Mine was just who do you want to win in the fight, Godzilla or Kong?
Oh,
That was my question.
Intellectual.
well,
was
Godzilla.
it.
Yeah.
None of this delving into the characters or the different films and whether it breaks people up or just who would you want to win in a fight, man? King Kong or Godzilla? That's all it was.
Godzilla would definitely win, I think.
I would love Godzilla.
Who would you want to win?
Probably Godzilla again. I mean, just to watch him kill a monkey.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I think.
Well, there's my question.
I think, there's a bit more fun when you see Godzilla going around destroying a city than Kong going around doing it. But I probably prefer Kong as a character, I guess. I quite like the.
Definitely
Was
has
it
more humanity to it.
2005 King Kong? Is it
Oh,
2005?
yeah, what the Peter Jackson one.
Jack
yeah,
Black.
Jack Black. I quite like that film.
Did you say more humanityless? Have you seen Son of Godzilla?
Oh shit, yeah. My bad. Have you seen Kong Skull Island, bro? That's got the most character development ever.
But what about when Godzilla is looking after his son?
He has a child.
Okay, we won't get back into the Godzilla films because I know Mike will rant about it for
Yeah,
ages.
I'll talk for.
We definitely
for
need to
hours.
do an episode on just these films.
Yeah, we do.
Sam, it's your one, right?
Yeah, so I wanted to ask if you could delete any movie franchise from existence, so it never existed in the first place, what would it be and why? I think obviously we can look at movie franchises that are 6 or 7 films long, but they could just be 2 or 3 as well. It doesn't matter. I think for me, to give you guys a little bit of time to think, for me, I'd get rid of the Twilight series, not only because I think they're terrible, but because then I also simultaneously eliminate the 50 Shades of Grey, because that started as Twilight fan fiction.
Oh, but you
So
might
it's
also get rid
two
of
birds with one
Robert Pattinson's
stone.
career.
I may also get rid of Rob, but that is a risk I have to take, unfortunately, in this hypothetical scenario. But yeah, I mean, it'd be Twilight for me, because I'm not a franchise guy, to be fair. I like some of the films, but I'm not passionate about them. But Twilight are ones that I was forced to watch all of when I was younger, and I just want to delete them.
Did your parents made you watch them?
No, I won't get into it, but I was on a year 8 trip to France, and we were on a coach for 18 hours, and they had all the Twilight films and nothing else, and they put them on the coach. So I was forced to watch them, but
That sounds very traumatic.
it was. That was my trip to France, but we won't go into that now.
That's for another episode.
That's for another therapy session.
I already know which franchise I was actually talking about it today, about how just meh, and I could just happily do without them. They're not bad by any means. I just don't really think I could go on, and I'm pretty sure you guys could go on without Narnia.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah, that's
I forgot.
Fair.
I forgot that existed.
Yeah.
But what about Tomness?
Oh, yeah, exactly. What about him? The whole franchise is so why?
Yeah, it is a very weak franchise. I get you.
Yeah, but I don't really have much to say about it. I mean, I remember watching the first one when I was younger, and I think Tilda Swinton's in it, and that kind of made me feel uncomfortable. And then yeah.
What, Tilda Swinton in general makes you uncomfortable?
yeah, she does.
Oh God!
Have you seen We Need to
Turkish
Talk About
Delight
Kevin?
Scenes make me feel uncomfortable. To be fair,
the Mr. Tomlin? Did you say?
The Turkish Delight scenes. I always look at Turkish Delight in a different way now.
Yeah, I know what you mean. That scene
Delight's in
actually
that
did make
movie.
me weirdly uncomfortable because I hate Turkish Delights.
I hate Turkish. I don't have a clue what you're on about, but I don't like Turkish
I
delights.
love a bit of Turkish Delight. Segue
Oh,
into
the
my
odd one out.
pick.
Oh, then Narnia's the franchise for you.
The franchise I would like to get rid of isn't one that a lot of people would think about, but it has got a lot of entries, and all of them are bad. Resident Evil.
No.
Oh yeah, true.
I'm someone who loves the Resident Evil games, and I think they could be a basis for either a great survival horror series or some interesting movies. There hasn't been a good live action Resident Evil film, and all of that is because of W.S. Anderson.
Wait,
Poor
what came?
W.S. Anderson.
What came
Awful.
first? Was it the games or the films?
The game came first.
Oh, the games
game
came
came
first.
Okay, I'll let you off then.
And then the films just there's a stupid amount of them, and all of them is just
They're so bad.
him putting his
Fair
wife
enough. Can't deny that.
Mila Jovovich in these terrible movies, and not one of them is good. And they've forever soiled.
And they made Monster Hunter recently as
I think
well.
they forever kind of soiled, for a while anyway. They soiled game movies. You know what I mean? People were like, I don't want to watch it. I don't want to make a game movie because it'll end up like Resident Evil. So I'd say get rid of it. Get rid of Mila Jovovich. Get rid of Paul W.S. Anderson. Yeah, I'd be happy to
What,
get rid
in
of all
general?
those things. Yeah, just
get rid of both.
Get rid of
all
him.
of it. If I could get rid of the franchise and everyone that's attached to it, I would.
It's fair enough. It's a pretty awful franchise to be
It's
fair.
terrible.
No redeeming qualities.
Not even
And
one.
Paul W.S. Anderson, he's never made anything good, really.
No, he
he
hasn't.
did Event Horizon.
No,
But
he's just made terrible films, and I don't know how he's continued to make them for 20 years.
yeah, and Mila Jovovich is like his muse, I swear, because
Yeah,
aren't they married in
they're
real
married,
life? And like
so
she
he
is,
just puts his wife
she's
in everything.
everything. Yeah, Finn, how about you?
Oh, it's a little series. I like to call Divergent.
Oh, good choice.
Oh
good
yeah,
choice.
choice.
shit.
Divergent.
Divergent is fucking awful.
Yeah, it's just it. I mean, it doesn't need to exist at all.
Yeah.
At
Yeah,
all.
that's a great
It was
pick as
very
well.
unmemorable. it was just like a kind of tin pot Hunger Games, and even Hunger Games didn't really end on a good notes. But at least the first one was kind of exciting, or it was
true.
when I first watched it.
Oh, first and second.
But Divergent, I just don't think I can find any. It was just a bit boring.
Yeah.
And you just don't need it. Just boring, waste of time.
Also, that
Sorry,
reminds me, like,
Divergent.
things
Sorry.
like the Maze Runner trilogy as well.
Oh yeah.
I just
I
kinda
kind of like
mine.
the first.
I would
Maze
say that I
Runner.
probably enjoyed the Maze Runner more than Divergent for sure. I forgot that
Yeah,
was
I'll
even
give
a
you that,
franchise.
but, I mean, they're not high standard films.
Yeah, like teen. What do you call them? Like teen action movies or something? Do they have a specific
Young adult.
name, like Paper Towns and like? That's it. Yeah, young adult kind of. Yeah, not good basically.
But The Fault in Our Stars, guys.
To be fair, if Fault in Our Stars didn't exist, Baby Driver wouldn't be the same. Because I was watching an interview with Edgar Wright saying that was the film that made him, contact Ansel Elgort, which is crazy. But
Damn, fair enough.
yeah, crazy how things tie in.
I mean, I could happily say that if all of the franchises we've said disappeared tomorrow, I would not be that upset.
Yeah. Right, and that
In fact, I'd be elated.
and that kind of brings us full circle. Then I guess we've
Brings us
spoke
to
for a
nice-
long time
nice little-
about film.
We did do that.
We did. But no, I mean, it's
Hopefully, you
nice-
enjoyed
yeah,
some of
It was
it.
nice talking about some of the newer films.
Wait, Michael, Michael, can you tell the people at home what they can do?
Well, first off, you can follow us on Instagram if you want to know. We got some little quick fire reviews on there. We got more information about upcoming podcasts and stuff like that. That'll be at Inepticast on Instagram. And also, if you're watching the video, obviously, which you should be, because that's how you'd be listening to me right now. You can
And we love you
can
for it.
like, comment, subscribe, and hit that bell, baby.
To get
Oh,
a
please do,
notification
please
every 6 months.
Don't do it for us. Do it for the Narnia franchise.
Do it for yourself. Do it for yourself.
If you love Divergent, don't follow us.
No, I mean-
I'm just gonna turn everyone away.
If you like Finn, really, really, really poorly answering questions, this is the place to be.
We're pretty inclusive, but not for Divergent
Not for Divergent
Or Resident Evil.
or Twilight.
or Resident Evil or Twilight.
Any of the past 20 minutes, basically.
Yeah.
We didn't really introduce ourselves at the start, I guess, but Sam, Lewis, Finn, Michael.
We don't need to. You guys know who we are.
Yeah.
You know us.
But no, I mean, we're going to hopefully record some more of these now. We're not as busy with uni work, which should be great. We just kind of enjoy doing them, talking about films, arguing about films. But yeah, I
guess
mean-
it's time to go.
Bye, everyone. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Bye.
Goodbye.